Do you have the gift of gab and like talking about interesting topics? Are you often called opinionated by your friends and family? Then come to Anchor where you can be all of the above and get paid for it. Along with being one of the easiest systems to create contact with, Anchor supplies everything you need and can be used from your smartphone or computer. They even distribute your content for you so that you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Just download the Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Hello, Internet family. This is Anjanette Potter, also known as Adam's Rib, and you are listening to 31 Days of Global Feminism. So as I finish these, what I will be doing is posting them on my AnjanetteSpeak blog. So the last post that I had, I talked about the Coombahi River Collective, which was a feminist group that was active around the 70s and on until 1980, I believe, into the 80s. So I'm going to be talking about one of the first of the lady activists that was instrumental in doing work for this group, and her name is Barbara Smith. So Barbara Smith was born November 16, 1946, so she's about a year older than my mother, and she's an American lesbian feminist and socialist who has played a significant role in black feminism in the United States. Since the early 70s, she has been active as a scholar, activist, critic, lecturer, author, and publisher of black feminist thought. She has also taught in numerous colleges and universities for 25 years. Her essays, reviews, articles, short stories, and literary criticism have appeared in a range of publications, including the New York Times Book Review, the Black Scholar, MS or Ms. magazine, Gay Communication News, the Guardian, the Village Voice, Conditions, and the Nation. She also has a twin sister, Beverly Smith, who is also a lesbian feminist activist and writer. So she actually is from Cleveland, Ohio, so she's an Ohio native. And let me see. So her early life, Miss Smith and her fraternal twin Beverly were born November 16, 1946 in Cleveland, Ohio, to Hilda Beale Smith. Born prematurely, both twins struggled through their first months of life, although Beverly particularly struggled after contracting pneumonia. Their mother worked as a nurse's aide and later a store clerk, so the girls' grandmother acted as their primary caretaker during their childhood, while their mother drew an income. In 1956, when Barbara and Beverly were 9, their mother died from heart complications related to childhood rheumatic fever. After their mother's death, the girl continued to live in a two-family home with their grandmother, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Although the Smith family was of relatively little means, her grandmother, aunts, and mother were all well educated, especially for the level of education access to black women in the 40s and 50s. Her mother and great aunts taught in segregated schools in the South before moving north, though her mother was the only one in her family to have received a college diploma, a Bachelor's of Science in Education from Fort Valley State University. Then, at the time, it was known as Fort Valley State College. Barbara's family were all active readers who emphasized education in and out of school. For most of her life, Barbara had little knowledge of her father, Gartrell Smith, who split with Hilda before the twins were born. According to Barbara's cousin, Aunt Isabel, Hilda and Gartrell eloped after Hilda's parents disapproved of the match. Hilda moved to Cleveland, pregnant after her split with Gartrell. Barbara never met her father or saw any pictures of him. Little is known of him other than he was a member of the military during World War II and that Hilda and Gartrell met in Georgia, where Hilda was attending college. Although Barbara and her sister grew up in the northern United States, her family retained its southern roots and traditions from rural Georgia. Her mother's family was one of the millions of African American families that participated in the Great Migration. So, the Great Migration, sometimes known as the Great Northward Migration or the Black Migration, was the movement of 6 million black African Americans out of the rural southern United States to the urban North, Midwest, and West that occurred between 1916 and 1970. It was caused primarily by the poor economic conditions as well as the prevalent Southern racial segregation and discrimination in the Southern states where Jim Crow laws were upheld. The historic change brought by the migration was amplified because the migrants, for the most part, moved to the then largest cities in the United States, which would have been New York, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C., at a time when those cities had a central cultural, social, political, and economic influence over the United States. There, African Americans established influential communities of their own. And so I'm going to let that, I'm going to come back to our main topic because I don't want to go too on and on too much. So this occurred in the first half of the 20th century to escape the South's oppressive racial caste system and improve their economic circumstances. Barbara describes her family as that of a Southern woman and credits her family's experience with intense racial trauma in Georgia as well as a catalyst for her activism. At the same time, she does not exonerate the North from intense racial discrimination. Neither do I. Documenting several formative incidents of anti-blackness that she and her sister experienced. During one such incident, she and her sister brought homemade cookies to their summer French class, which was taught by an unabashedly racist woman. None of the white children in the class ate any of the cookies. Despite obvious racial discrimination, however, both Barbara and Beverly excelled academically. So her level of education, Barbara and her sister began their elementary education at Bolton Elementary School and moved to Robert Fulton Elementary School during first grade. Ms. Smith partially credits her early academic success to the high quality of the public schools she attended. Though she and her sister were selected for a special school for the academically talented in fourth grade, their family decided not to switch this girls' school so soon after their mother's death. Barbara and Beverly attended Alexander Hamilton Junior High School and then later John Adams High School. In high school, Smith excelled in honors and AP classes and scored very high on the PSAT. Very proud of her. The grades and test scores gained her interest to Mount Holyoke College in 1965, but fatigued by racial animosity at the college, she transferred to the new school, I hear you, for social research in New York City, where she studied social sciences for a year. She returned to Mount Holyoke for her senior year and graduated in '69. After graduating from Mount Holyoke College in 1969, Smith pursued an MA in, which is Master of Arts, um, of, of Arts in the University of Pittsburgh and graduated in 1971. In Pittsburgh, she began to become active in the women's movement and the gay liberation movement. In 1981, Smith completed all but the dissertation for her doctoral studies at the University of Connecticut. By that time, she was a well-educated, well-known activist for Black feminist and LGBTQ issues. In 2015, the University at Albany awarded Miss Smith an honorary doctorate degree. And so some of her early activism, because she grew up in a deeply segregated society, Ms. Smith developed a political consciousness from a young age. As high school students, she and her sister participated in civil rights protests that centered on school segregation. During this desegregation. So during this time, Ms. Smith was a volunteer for the Cleveland chapter of the Congress of Racial Equality, or CORE. She describes the murder of Bruce Clunder, an activist and minister, as a catalytic force behind her involvement with the Cleveland movement. She attended several speeches by Martin Luther King and met civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer. Okay. Just got another idea for a notable. In 1965, Ms. Smith matriculated at Mount Holyoke College, where she was one of the few black students. She quickly became involved with the Civil Actions Group, which, amongst other issues, was involved in organizing against the Vietnam War. Although Mount Holyoke did not have a Students for Democracy Society, chapter on campus, Smith and other Mount Holyoke students admired and imitated the group's efforts. During her year at the New School for Social Research, Ms. Smith traveled to Chicago and participated in the protests accompanying the Democratic National Convention. After graduating from Mount Holyoke, she took a break from frontline activism, where she felt constrained by her identity as a woman and the Black nationalist movement. So, for a time, she reasoned that she could help advance racial justice by working within the academy. But after attending a meeting of the National Black Feminist Organization, or NBFO, she re-entered the sphere of activism and began collaborating with many notable women of color. Ms. Smith settled in Boston after receiving an MA, Master of Arts in Literature, from the University of Pittsburgh. Lord have mercy. Her sister Beverly's staff position at Miss Magazine, MS, allowed Beverly to obtain critical contacts, and through the publication, Barbara met Margaret Sloan, a founder of the NBOFO. NBOFO. Intrigued by the call for attendance to the NBFO's Eastern Regional Conference in 1974, Ms. Smith caucused with women from the Boston area and made contacts in order to establish a Boston NBFO chapter. In 1975, with Beverly and Demita Fraser, with her sister Beverly and Demita Fraser, who was a Chicago activist, Smith established a Boston NBFO chapter. Due to lack of direction from the national organization, the Boston chapter had an independent nature, decided as a group to focus on consciousness raising and grassroots organizing that assisted Boston's poor and working classes. So now we get into her activity. With the Combahee River Initiative, or CRC. Frustrated by the lack of communication from the regional organization, but also realizing that the Boston chapter's politics were significantly more radical than the NBFOs, the group decided to split off entirely. Named after a successful military operation Harriet Tubman led during the Civil War at a river in South Carolina, the Combahee River Collective moved quickly to write a manifesto. The Combahee River Collective Statement, which outlines the group's objectives but also identifies it as a class-conscious, sexually affirming black feminist organization. Recognizing lesbianism as a legitimate identity reinforced the debate within black feminism and the larger women's movement. As a socialist black feminist organization, the collective emphasized the intersections of race, gender, and heterosexist and class oppression in the lives of African Americans and other women of color. Like other black feminist organizations at the time, Combahee, or CRC, articulated many of the concerns specific to black women, from anger with black men for dating and marrying white women. That's funny. To internal conflict over skin color, hair texture, and facial features, to the differences between the mobility of white and black women, also attacking the myth of black matriarch and stereotypical portrayals of black women in popular culture. The collective also worked on issues such as reproductive rights, sexual SA, or the R word, because I'm planning on posting this on YouTube, prison reform, sterilization, abuse, violence against women, healthcare, and racism within the white women's organization. It was deliberately structured to avoid hierarchy and to give members a sense of equality. Ms. Smith cited this structure as essential to ensuring that black feminism survived as a radical movement. CRC members organized retreats to discuss issues within the statement and find ways to incorporate black feminism into black women's consciousness and pressing issues within their own communities. But the organization lost momentum as conversations about lesbianism and educational advancement alienated some members. As a result of leadership conflict and interpersonal disputes, CRC's membership declined. The last meeting was in 1980. Okay, so another organization that she wound up with, and I'm going to talk about them sometime this week, and that's called Kitchen Table Women of Color Press. An enthusiastic an enthusiast of American literature and writing, Miss Smith pursued English study throughout her education. After being enthralled by James Baldwin's novel Go Tell It on the Mountain, she resolved to become an expatriate writer. So, an expatriate, often referred to as expat, is a person who resides in a country other than their native country. Okay. In common usage, the term often refers to educated professionals, skilled workers, or artists taking positions against their home country, either independently or sent abroad by their employers. However, the term expatriate is also used for retirees and others who have chosen to live outside their native country. Historically, it is also referred to exiles. Okay, so if you want to look that up, like I said before, it's in Wikipedia. So she became an expatriate writer, but due to her interest in social movements within the 60s, she resigned herself to literature studies at home. She also pursued graduate study in literature in an attempt to seek out women writers of color, but came to terms with the fact that the American literary canon did not include black women. After reading in a Ms. magazine article that Alice Walker would be teaching a course on African American writers, Miss Smith enrolled and vowed to teach women writers of color whenever she taught. She began doing so at Emerson College in 1973. Dismayed that works available by writers of color prominently featured the experience of women, Miss Smith founded Kitchen Table Women of Color Press on her friend Audre Lorde's suggestion. So, established in 1980 in Boston, Kitchen Table relocated to. So, let me give you some background on Kitchen Table because, like I said, I'm going to be talking about it. So, Kitchen Table Women of Color Press was an activist feminist press that was closely related to the National Black Feminist Organization, which was started in 1980 following a phone call conversation between Barbara Smith and at the suggestion of her friend Audre Lorde, which I just discussed. Beverly and Barbara Smith and their associate Demita Frazier together co-founded CRC. The Kitchen Table Women of Color Press was most active beginning in 1981. But the press became inactive soon after Audre Lorde's death in 1992. Ms. Smith explains how the motivation for starting a press run by and for women of color was that as feminist and lesbian women of colors, we knew that we had no options for getting published except at the mercy or whim of others. I feel their pain. Even though I'm not a lesbian, I feel their pain, which is some of the reason why Adams Rib Media Ministries is existing. So, whether in the context of alternative or commercial publishing, both are white dominated. Established in 1980 in Boston, Kitchen Table relocated to New York in 1981. In collaboration with Lorde, Sherry Moraga, Hattie Gossett, Susan L. Young, June Jordan, and Gloria and Zaldua. Miss Smith published several pamphlets and books that came to be embraced in ethnic studies, women's studies, queer studies, and black studies programs such as Homegirls, a black feminist anthology, This Bridge, Called My Back, Suentu, Stories by Latinas, and I Am Your Sister, Black Women Organizing Across Sexualities. So Ms. Smith said that Kitchen Table's legacy lies in contemporary publishing, just as women of color's writers such as Walker and Toni Morrison had entered the American literary canon, as well as influencing feminist studies to incorporate intersectionality as a lens of inquiry. Ms. Smith continued to write and produce a collection of her essays, articles, and reviews after her involvement with Kitchen Table ended. Her article, Toward a Black Feminist Criticism, first published in Conditions magazine, is frequently cited as the breakthrough article in Black women's literature and Black lesbian discussion. Miss Smith has edited 3 major collections about Black women. Conditions 5, The Black Woman's Issue 79 with Lorraine Bethel, All the Women Are White, All the Blacks Are Men, But Some of Us Are Brave. Black Women's Studies, 1982, with Gloria T. Hall and Patricia Bell Scott, who I'll also be talking about this month. Homegirls, a Black Feminist Anthology, first edition, Kitchen Table, Women of Color Press, 1983, second edition, Rutgers University Press, 2000. She has since collected her various writings in the anthology, The Truth That Never Hurts, writings on race, gender, and freedom. So we talk about her in feminism. Miss Smith was the first writer to coin the term, the first scholar to coin the term identity politics, which she used to describe the intersecting modes of identity that create unique forms of oppression for women of color, especially Black lesbian women. I am not one. So, from that conception of from identity politics, Kimberly Crenshaw developed the idea of intersectionality that has gained popularity and recognition in the last 20 years. Ms. Smith was critical of second wave feminism for often neglecting and sometimes intentionally excluding Black women's experience. If feminism did not include all women, she claimed, then it was not feminism, so much as female self-aggrandizement. Okay, in conjunction, hold on here. Lost my place. In conjunction with identity politics, Ms. Smith created Black feminist criticism. In her groundbreaking piece, Toward a Black Feminist Criticism, Ms. Smith identifies the rich literary tradition of Afro-descended women in America. She claims that these black female authors have been largely ignored in literary history. When they have not been overtly ignored, they have been devalued and stripped of political and feminist meaning. Because there is no political movement for Black women, Black feminism, Black women's work was regulated to African American literature, stripped of an analysis of sex or gender, meaning the works that defined feminism at that time related only to white women's experience, along with providing a theoretical framework which by which to evaluate literature by black women. Smith was also perhaps the influential force in popularizing authors like Alice Walker, Toni Morrison, Amy Tan, and other female authors of color through her kitchen table, Women of Color Press. As a lesbian, Miss Smith's intersectional approach to feminism extended beyond race and gender onto sexuality. She was the first scholar to identify black lesbian feminist body of literature, although she separated lesbianism from a political identity. During the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Ms. Smith was active in LGBT rights movements, but became disillusioned by the movement's lack of complexity, which she felt revolved around single issues like gay marriage and celebrity culture. Really? Mainstream LGBT movements centered the experience of white gays while ignoring the compounded oppression faced by queer people of color. Since then, Ms. Smith has preferred multi-issue LGBT activism that addresses the oppression faced by those most marginalized in society. Okay, so I'm gonna let me see. At one point, continuing her work as a community organizer, Ms. Smith was elected to the Albany, New York Common Council in 2005, representing Ward 4, and re-elected in 2009. She also worked during this period with David Kaczynski at New Yorkers for Alternatives to the Death Penalty on innovative solutions to violent crime. During her 2 terms at the Albany Common Council, Ms. Smith was active on issues of youth development, violence prevention, and educational opportunities for poor minority and undeserved persons. She did not seek re-election in 2013. Ms. Smith now works with the Albany Mayor's Office, spearheading initiatives to address economic, racial, and social inequity. Some accomplishments. Ms. Smith has continued to lecture and speak. She donates her papers to the Lesbian Her Story Archives in Brooklyn, New York, and gave oral histories of her life to Columbia University and Smith College. She has appeared in Marlon Riggs' 1994 documentary, Black Is, Black Ain't, and the 2013 PBS and AOL documentary, Makers, Women Who Make America. On February 2nd, 2017, she made a speech at Claiming Williams, an event where the campus community comes together to discuss issues of race, gender, identity, religion, and community. Claiming Williams is Moral Courage Day at Williams College. Smith said that taking the high ground, being honest, and deciding to do something that is objectively frightening are key components of moral courage. Smith was a fellow at Radcliffe College's Bunting Institute in 1996 and received a 1994 Stonewall Award for her activism. She received the Church Women United Human Rights Award in 2000 and was and was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. On November 14th, 2015, the Albany the Albany Public Library Foundation awarded Miss Smith the title Literary Legend, along with Albany native Gregory Maguire, who is author of Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. Miss Smith is an activist against Islamic phobia. She established a website called Stop Islamic Phobia to demonstrate support for immigrants and refugees. She created a United States of All decal and coordinated marches in November and December 2006. In season 6, episode 3 of the podcast Making Gay History, released in 2017, was about Miss Smith. February 2020, Miss Smith endorsed Bernie Sanders for president in the Democratic primaries. In June 2020, in honor of the 50th anniversary of the first LGBTQ Pride Parade, Queerty named her among the 50 heroes leading the nation forward toward equality, acceptance, and dignity for all people. And so if you want to see the awards that she has gotten, you can go to her Wikipedia page. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so I'm going to go into another place where she was mentioned. So in 2014, SUNY Press published Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Round, 40 Years of Movement Building with Barbara Smith. This was a reflective conversation through four decades of activism. Editors Alethea Jones, and Virginia Eubanks worked with Smith to explore her life from her childhood to her recent work as an elected official. By combining hard-to-find historical documents with new unpublished interviews with fellow activists and scholars, the book uncovers the deep roots of today's identity politics and intersectionality and serves as a primer for practicing solidarity and resistance. It has a foreword by Robin D.G. Kelly. Just found something else to add. Another topic to add to my content. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm gathering some other information here. So I just grabbed an article about Miss Smith. Whew, Lord have mercy. So I'm gonna finish this up. So I'm at my so that was an impressive history. I will be tomorrow. I will be recording the podcast for Miss Smith's sister and Demetra Fraser, who is another partner in the in the CRC. So I'm gonna go ahead and get off here and everything. I'm seeing quite a bit of response to the podcast that I have posted. As I have said, I'm in several different platforms. I'm at Anchor, which is where the podcasts are being posted. So you can find me on Anchor if you want to download their app. But I'm also on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitchers, and several other, about 9 different platforms that I'm on right now. So if you guys, want to listen, and I'm also on YouTube as well. So if I can get these others uploaded to YouTube tonight and possibly, tomorrow morning, then you can be able to click on them on YouTube and listen as well. Any content that you like, please subscribe to, because your subscription helps me out a lot. It helps me to keep the work going. So, and as I said, these are not just things that we can touch about 1 month out of the year. These are meant to be ongoing discussions about race, about sex, and about sexual identity. I think a lot more sensitivity goes a long way. Awareness. When I was posting with Yes All Women, one of the things that I said to one of the lesbians on there, I said, I recognize that you maybe have, I didn't say all of this, but recognizing that many people, especially out of the LGBTQ community, have had some pretty negative run-ins with born-again Christians. I told a woman, I said, I don't have to support your lifestyle to care about you as a person. We are fighting this whole thing of violence against women together. Okay, because many people out of the LGBTQ community suffer violence at the hands of people, especially men who feel threatened by their sexual identity. So I will be talking about that more this month as well. So I will, because I think that many times people use Christianity as an excuse to disguise homophobia, and the two are not the same. So I will talk with you guys tomorrow. I will be. Please feel free. I know if you listen to my stuff, you hear my little message thing at the end. So feel free to send a message either through the podcast or, like I said, through YouTube. I also post on my. I also do my lives, and that's usually through Haps TV, is where I record the lives, but then it's simulcast on my personal Facebook and the Adams Rib Media Ministry Facebook page, as well as Twitch, YouTube, and it looks like they're trying to get us together so that we can be able to post on TikTok as well. But wherever you are listening to me at, please, wherever you are listening to me, because Adams Rib Media Ministry lives on, it ain't going nowhere. Feel free to comment, feel free to message me, feel free to ask questions. If you're following me on the WordPress blogs, feel free to ask questions, feel free to, to say, Anjanette, what about this? I never hear you do a show on this. And I would be more than happy to pontificate for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here, and I will be talking to you later. Mwah. That's the sound of me blowing you a kiss, and I will talk to you all. I will be doing more postings tomorrow. Hello, you have reached the message line for Adam's Rib Media Ministry. If you would like to give me a shout out, recommend some topics for discussion, or give an opinion about some topics that I've already discussed, either here on my podcast or on my blogs, leave me a message and I will get right back to you. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.